So you want to know how to play
HYPERCARRY Raiden.
Well, first you start with the build. You thought you need C2 to make Raiden a HYPERCARRY? Well, let me tell you something. A little closer, yeah? You're wrong. She can be a HYPERCARRY even at C0. She's an electro DPS with support capabilities, which she can also take advantage of. She will need either a C6 Kujosara or Lisa with TTDS to make her stronger, along with Bennett and Kazuha. To make artifact farming a little easier, rather than getting the best 4-piece set for Raiden and her teammates, except for sports, we'll focus on getting their desired stats instead. For Raiden, you can use any 2-piece of Thundering Fury, Noblesse, Emblem, and any of the 2-piece attack sets. For weapons, you can use Engulfing Lightning or Skyward Spine for 5-star, and the Catch or Wave Breaker's Fin for 4-star. For her supports, Kujosara and Lisa, like Raiden, can use any 2-piece of Thundering Fury, Noblesse, Emblem, and any of the 2-piece attack sets. On the other hand, Bennett and Kazuha will use a 4-piece Noblesse and 4-piece Viridescent Venerer. The rotation. To start the rotation, start with Raiden's skill, then switch to Bennett and use his burst, switch to Kazuha and use his burst, then switch to Kujosara and use her burst, switch to Raiden and use her burst, do 3 normal attacks and 1 charge attack 3 times. Then switch to Bennett and use his skill. Switch to Kazuha, hold his skill, and plunge.
Shine down! I'm going in! Cloud time! The birds up! Glory to the Shogun! Torn to oblivion! The wind knows.
The pros and cons. Let's start with the advantages. This team has a simple and straightforward rotation. As most of the damage comes from Raiden, she's the only one you really need to be buffed. Therefore, there's no need to go back and forth between characters. They're strong in AoE and single target scenarios. Kazuha's massive swirl damage and ability to gather enemies, plus Raiden's strong nuke and decent range, makes this team perform excellently in either scenarios. Raiden has some decent resistance to interruption. Raiden, during her burst, has a good level of interruption resistance where she can do her combos comfortably as long as she isn't hit by a heavy attack. She can also take some damage as long as she's in Bennett's burst. For the disadvantages, this team needs a highly invested Raiden. Again, most of the damage of this team comes from her, so she needs to be equipped with the best artifacts and, if possible, her best 4-piece set. Overload is terrible against light or small enemies. The reactions knockback messes up with the grouping set up by Kazuha, which lowers the team's DPS quite a lot. This team requires a C6 4-star to function well, although Lisa can be a nice substitute. Especially if you have really good artifacts, she can't compare to C6 Kujosara's buffing abilities. The additional crit damage and her attack buff increases Raiden's damage significantly, but because it's locked on C6, this team immediately becomes really expensive to build for, unless you're really lucky. Raiden's movement is limited to Bennett's field and Kazuha's burst. Raiden needs to stay inside of Bennett's and Kazuha's burst in the entire duration of her burst to maximize her DPS. Proper grouping of enemies is required in AoE situations, and correct positioning of Bennett's and Kazuha's burst are required for single target scenarios. This team requires some skill to play. Although Raiden has some resistance to interruption, dodging is still required. There are times when Bennett's healing won't be enough to keep her alive, so learning when to dodge enemy attacks is essential. And that's it for
HYPERCARRY Raiden.
I hope you liked this video. Leave any questions or suggestions you have in the comments and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. If you have any teams you'd like me to make a video on, also leave them in the comments. See you in another video!